going to be recording, so I can send that to you guys and we can get it onto, it'll be on our YouTube channel as well. So, so looks like we are all set to go, and yep, we are live and we've got some watchers. So anyways, I'm going to give everybody a couple, like I said, a couple more minutes to find us. In the meantime, I'll fill some airtime. Let everybody know what Warwick's is doing, and I have a feeling this will be a pretty San Diego-centric audience that we'll have tonight, being that it's theater production in San Diego is the title of our program this evening. But for those of you that are maybe not familiar with Warwick's, we've been in business since 1896. Nancy Warwick is the 4th generation owner of the store. We've been in La Jolla since the 30s. We've been in the building that we're in since the 50s. So I'd be hard pressed to find an older business here in San Diego. I think Nancy's got herself one of the older legacy businesses in town. So during this time of COVID, we have readapted. One of the things that Warwick's is very well known for in San Diego is the wonderful author events that we do in the community. Going out and filling theaters. Speaking of theaters, we fill theaters with our author events. And we've been in a couple of the iconic theaters in town, Balboa Theater, and we've done things at the La Jolla Playhouse. So we're familiar with that backstage stuff. I usually don't like being in the front too much, but anyways. So just to let people know too that we will be putting in the comment section. There's ways for you to participate tonight as a viewer. So if you have a comment, I'll be in the background monitoring Facebook Live. So if you have anything, conversation between Phil and Jay is going to go for about 35, 40-ish minutes. And then we'll bring in some questions from the audience as we get going, as we get to towards the end of the conversation. So with that, I'm going, take that picture, right? Take that snap. Although, yeah, like I said, I don't usually like being in the front of house so much. But anyway, so back to Warwick's. We are open for business. We're doing masks, social distancing. So we're taking all the protocol. Just so people know, because I may forget to say this later, this weekend is Independent Bookstore Day and the San Diego Festival of Books and the San Diego Book Crawl. So there's lots of good stuff going on in the book world on Saturday, but also look at our website, join our email list. We're doing wonderful virtual events like this with Jay and Phil almost every night. So there's always something to see and trying to bring you some good topics. So with that, let's get the evening going. So we've got some good watchers out there. So
hello, good watchers.
Hello, watchers. And again, like I said, if you didn't catch us right at the beginning, this will be on, and you can always go back to Facebook and watch it. So Phil Johnson, welcome. Thank you for being here. It's wonderful having you. Phil is an artistic director, development director, actor, and writer for the Roustabouts Theater Company, now 4 years old. He is also on the executive board of the new San Diego Theater Alliance, a county-wide professional organization. As an actor and writer, his latest original solo show, A Jewish Joke, co-written with Marnie Freeman. Hi, Marnie, if you're watching, we love you. Played off Broadway in 2019 and toured nationally. Also, She Rent You Less. I think I probably butchered that, so you may need to re-say it for me, Phil. From Outer Space in 3D, which performed at the New York Fringe Festival. Phil's latest project with Marnie Freeman is a biographical solo show on Theodore Roosevelt for the Roustabouts, playing October till the election. He played in Les Miserables on Broadway and on tour, Sunset Boulevard, Canada, and the first national company of Miss Saigon. Wow. He has twice won the San Diego Critics Circle Craig Knoll Award for acting. San Diego theaters include North Coast Rep, Signet, Old Globe, Diversionary, Backyard Renaissance, and San Diego Rep. Published original titles include Wuthering Heights, love that, and She Rent You Less from Outer Space. We're so thrilled to have you here tonight, Phil. Jay, you guys have a great conversation, and I'll see you in a few minutes.
Thanks, Julie. Thanks, Julie.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Hi, welcome to Warwick's. Very excited to be here. This is going to be a day all about local theater. So I hope you like that, because this is going to be a good and juicy one. We are here talking with the man, the legend. I'd like to introduce you to Mr. Sheehan, who's written a wonderful book. Let me tell you a little bit about him. On the faculty for 20 years, Jay oversees the production management and stage management areas for the School of Theater, TV, and Film at San Diego State University. Seeing a need for a textbook on production management, Jay and his co-author, Carrie Gillette, penned the Production Manager's Toolkit, which was released in 2017, and they're currently working on the second edition right now. Jay also serves as the National Production Manager for the National Young Arts Foundation, and he oversees productions in Miami and the Presidential Scholars Program at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. Quite fancy. Jay is an equity stage manager. He's worked on over 50 shows at the Old Globe, San Diego Rep, and others. And he's been Director of Production and Operations for the San Diego Symphony and Director of Operations for the House of Blues, overseeing the 20,000-seat amphitheater in Chula Vista. That's a job. Yeah. Jay is also owner of Q1 Productions and a freelance special event manager whose client list includes the NFL, Major League Baseball's All-Star Games, nonprofit charity events all over the United States. Let's give a big welcome to Mr. Jay Sheehan. Hello, Jay.
Hello, everybody. How are you? Thank you for that wonderful introduction.
You're so welcome. We're so happy to be talking about this. It's so exciting that you have a book.
Yeah, you're telling me. One of those things that just never in my life did I think that I'd ever be a textbook author.
It's pretty thrilling.
It wasn't a goal, but it happened. So we're thrilled. I know Carrie and I are working on the second edition right now, and it's challenging, but it's been a good conversation to have, about the state of theater and really what are we going to rewrite, because of what's happened with COVID and the industry change, and how do we address that in the second edition? Because by the time it comes out, maybe we're back to normal. It's just it's a fine line. It's a fine line, but we're excited about the second edition and all the things that we've learned since the first one came out. I mean, being a production manager, you're always learning, you're always meeting new people and new relationships. So the amount of things that we've learned since when it came out in 2017 until now is just, we could write probably another whole book, but we got to keep it to within the publisher's, amount of pages that they want for us.
Right. Now, can you tell us, do you use the book at San Diego State? Do you use that for classes at State?
I do, but I give, not to make money off the students, because that's not what I'm into. I offer to buy their books back at the end of the semester if they don't want to continue it. But yeah, that's what we wrote it for. We were both being asked to teach production management at our universities. Carrie was at the University of Maryland, and me obviously at San Diego State, and we met at USITT and had been talking about the lack of a production management book. And every year we would get together at the USITT conference and we would complain about it. Oh, there's still no book. And we would use, other authors' leadership books and articles. And finally, one night we were having, probably having drinks at the hotel bar, and one of our colleagues just said, would you guys just stop complaining and write the book yourselves? And we both looked at each other and said, yeah, absolutely, we should do that. Let's just write the book ourselves, not having any clue of how to get a publishing deal. Neither one of us had any experience with writing necessarily. And so we left that night just saying, yeah, we should do this. And then we were both excited secretly. And the next day we both went to a panel together and we sat next to each other. It was on leadership at USITT conference. And the whole time Carrie was writing this big list of things, like she was taking these copious notes and things, and then I was taking copious notes. We both thought we were taking copious notes on the panelists, but at the end of it, I said, what were you writing all that time? And she said, I wrote a table of contents. and then I said, guess what? So did I. And at that moment, it was like, and then we looked at the differences and we were like, we have to do this. We have to do this.
Yeah.
And we said, how do we do this really? And to think about now the next events that happened, that the planets had to be lined up so specifically, like, those moments when you're in the right place in the right time and you're ready. I suggested to Carrie, let's go down to the expo floor tomorrow, which is a gigantic, part of USITT. There's the Focal Press booth. It was the bookstore that sells textbooks. And I said, let's just go and ask the lady there, how do you get a publishing deal? And she looked at me like I was completely insane, which I was. And so she said, okay. And we got excited. We went down there the next day and stood in line to get to the cashier, because the cashier was the only person there at the time. We got to the line and said, "We have an idea for a textbook." And the lady looked at me like we had nothing to buy. So she looked at like we were insane. And she said, "About what?" Like she didn't really know even how to respond. And I said, "About production management. There isn't one, and we want to do one." So out of, I think, kindness, she said, "Give me your business card," right? So we gave her gave her both her business cards, and we left. And we said, that was the dumbest thing I've ever heard of, right? Well, what happened was, really, this is the miracle part, is that the lady that we handed the business card to was the new acquisitions editor for Focal Press. And she had been giving the young lady behind the counter a lunch break. So for that half hour, she was there, and we handed her that card within that half hour. And had we been earlier or later, never would have happened. But she was interested enough to write us an email 3 weeks later and say, "Write us a sample chapter." And at that point, we both gulped and went, "Oh my gosh, is this really happening?" And we wrote the chapter and submitted it. And then 16 anonymous readers all gave it a thumbs up. And we got a contract signed July 7th, and we had met in March, so April, May. So 3 months, and we were writing a book. And then we both looked at each other and said, "Okay, I guess we're writers now. Let's go about this." And it was just such a great experience for us to get to meet so many other production managers. This is not only the voice of Carrie and I, but it's the voice, if you'll notice, there's a lot of text boxes and tip boxes, all by production managers all around the country who we have met through our relationships that we talk so much about how important that they are. So it's the voice of many, and I think that's one of the things that we're proud of.
How wonderful that your students then get that up-to-the-minute experience that you have. That's kind of amazing.
Yeah, it is one of the things that my pedagogical approach is about, because I'm still working professionally. And a lot of times we'll do observations where the student will come to the event and get a chance to see about the things that we talked about in the classroom that were things that go sideways, right? Because no event ever goes off without something that could be going wrong. So we talk about in the classroom the challenges of different types of events, and then they get a chance to observe that and staying up to date. And I have to say that my faculty and my director of our school and the philosophy of the school, College of Professional Fine Arts, is that we are working faculty so that we are able to bring that back into the classroom. It's one of the things that we pride ourselves on. So a lot of people are doing it besides me.
Yeah, yeah. Now, what was the break that came your way that started your stage management career?
Oh my gosh. I always wanted to be a stage manager. I knew that from the time I was in high school, when I didn't really know what a stage manager was, and went to junior college, transferred to San Diego State in the theater department, which is really funny because that's now what I teach and where I teach. I got a phone call from, I don't even remember who, but they said that this show called Suds, the Rockin' 60s musical soap opera, Steve Gunderson, Melinda Gill, Sue Mosier, was going to go to New York, and it was written here in San Diego, and they were looking for some help. So I called Steve Gunderson and I said, "Can I be the stage manager?" I just asked straight up, "Can I be the stage manager?" And he said, "No, you're not equity, and we have a stage manager, but if you want to come down and like make coffee or something or sweep the floor, come down and do it." And I just did it. I said yes, and I swept that floor with gusto, and I made the best coffee I could. I had a smile on my face, and lo and behold, they said, "We want to take you to New York. We can't make you a stage manager, but do you want to be a follow spot operator?" Will Roberson, wonderful man, and Steve Gunderson, and Brian Scott, the producer. And I said, "Sure, I'll be a follow spot operator. How much? What does it pay?" And they said, "You get $1,000 a week. $1,000 for the month, $250 a week, and your housing is $900 probably." So I was like, "Oh, I'm up 100 going into New York City. I'm there. Let's just do it, right?" So we did. And while I was in New York, I met so many wonderful people, including Doug Peyote, who was the production stage manager at the Old Globe, who was doing a show at the Promenade up on 72nd Street. And I got on a loading call, because you want to work as much as you can. So I started asking people for work. And when I went in to say hi to everybody, Douglas had come to my stage management class when I was at San Diego State, and he said, "You're that guy that followed me to my car." And I said, "Yes, I am, sir, and nice to see you. How can I come and work for you at the Old Globe? Because it's been a goal of mine since I was like 16 years old." And he said, "I've heard about you. When you get back to San Diego, come and do an interview with me. And I was just beside myself. I was beside myself. Worst interview I've ever had in my life. I have to tell you, I went there thinking I'm going to show him my prompt book, you know, and my paperwork. And Douglas asked me, he said, tell me what you know about the theater and why do you want to be a part of the work that we do? And I was silent, man. I had never heard a question like that as a young kid. And all I could get out was, I know you do Shakespeare. And that was it. He terminated the interview. He said, listen, why don't you go home and think about what I asked you, and then let's try this again in a couple of weeks. And at that point, it was like, you know, why? The question of why has now since been in my head since then, to ask ourselves why we do things. So I went home, I studied, I came back, and I said, you know, the Old Globe was established in the 1930s, and Craig Knoll was, you know, the whole thing. And he said, okay, now show me your paperwork. Now show me your paperwork. And I got the job. I got my equity card, and had a great time there. Great time there.
That's so good. And you must have met a lot of celebrities and people on their way up and down. And
yeah. But, you know, everybody's the same. We don't, you know, we try not to treat celebrities, you know, much differently. But, you know, I met so many wonderful actors and associate artists and Tom Hall and Jack O'Brien and Craig. I got to, you know, my first show was Driving Miss Daisy with Sadie Thompson and Jack O'Brien directing. That was my first show, right? Wow. So I was like, I can die and go to heaven now. This was incredible. And just, I learned so much at the Old Globe. I'm really grateful to them for that.
And when did you leave the Old Globe?
I left in around 1996. What happened was, in 95, Damn Yankees was coming to town, a Broadway produced with Jerry Lewis.
Yeah.
And you know, what they do is they bring in a New York stage manager to stage manage the show, because when it goes back to New York, they don't want to pay an out of town stage manager, you know, to live in Manhattan. So it's cheaper to have a Broadway stage manager already on it. So at that point, they said, we have to lay you off because there's not a show for you. And I was like, okay, time to do something else, you know. And it's at that point when people start to hear that you're out of work, that your friends start to call you because of these relationships that you have made over the course of your time, you know. And I got a call that said, I heard the San Diego Symphony is looking for a stage manager. And I said, great, I'll go do it. I knew nothing about classical music, nothing about working with orchestra musicians, nothing about orchestra operations, but I said I was qualified, and I would go to the interview, which I did. And I said, you know, stage managing is stage managing. It's just, we're going to take care of a maestro instead of a director. We're going to get actors or, you know, musicians in their seats instead of actors to places. And, you know, how did those skills just transfer over as a stage manager? And on my first day of work, the gentleman that said he was going to teach me everything gave me his keys and said, I just quit. I was in a fight with the CEO and I'm leaving now. So here you go. Just clap your hands twice and the musicians will get to their seats. And that was the entire instruction that I got.
Oh my God.
How to be a stage manager for an orchestra. And, you know, at that point, they also said, well, you're now the hall rental manager. So I was starting to rent the hall and do rock concerts. And that's kind of where I started getting my chops about working with promoters, and a gentleman named Bill Silva, who I'm indebted to for, you know, my music part of my career. You know, and everybody knows who Bill Silva is in San Diego. He's been around here. So I was doing shows with Bill, and then he gave me an opportunity. And, you know, all these opportunities happen in your life that, you know, you got to take a risk sometimes, you know, and take one. So there's a lot of people that I'm indebted to for my career, for sure.
Yeah, show business is very much about having a great network of people that you know and can know what you're doing and can call on for help. And so it's a very friend-oriented world, I think.
It is. But you have to be good at your job too, because
and love it.
And because somebody's not going to recommend you if they think that you're going to be, you know, not good, because their reputation is on the line. Whenever you recommend somebody, they better pay off, or else, you know, you don't look good. So it's important to make those relationships. And, you know, those relationships really are just based on trust, right? We have to trust first, you know, and then anything's possible. But it's all about relationships. My boss at the Amphitheater, Buck Martin, used to tell me that, and I say that to my students. They get so sick of me hearing about it. But, you know, networking is not about going to cocktail hour and, like, you know, schmoozing, because I'm the worst at that. I have such social anxiety disorder. I don't go to cast parties, and I avoid crowds like that. So your networking has to come in the form of your work, right? Because I'm much more comfortable in my work environment. So, that's where my networking came. And then it's always, hey, I'm available. You got to let yourself be known about your own situation, because as a freelancer, you are your own brand, and you've got to, do your part to get out there and let people know that you're looking for work, or else they won't necessarily know.
Right.
But it's all about relationships. Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
Now, you were the stage manager for Everplaid for a while.
Yes, I was. We originally did it in at the Old Globe. I was an assistant stage manager on that. And then when it came back to San Diego at the theater in Old Town, my colleagues Paula Kalustian, who I'm indebted to, and Jill and Harris Goldman was the general manager. They asked if I would be interested in stage managing this show, and I said, sure. How long could this thing run, really?
Yeah.
It did. Yeah, ended up running for like 5 years, and after 2 years of doing the same show night after night after night, which I love doing, had some of the best laughs in the dressing room of that show with Steve Gunderson and Leo and Rick Meads and Bobby Smith. Belly laughs that hurt, those kind of things.
Very funny. Yeah, I was Steve's first understudy in that show.
Oh my God.
I probably was there right after you. So that was when I first moved to San Diego. Funny show.
Yeah, it's a great show. It's a great show.
Yeah.
But 2 years into doing it, I was starting to feel that urge to want to do something else. And all of a sudden, my phone rang out of the blue. And I'm like, it was the Coors Amphitheater people from Universal Music Group, who owned the amphitheater at the time. It wasn't built yet. And they said, hey, this gentleman said, hey, you're on a short list to be this art operations manager. Would you be willing to come down for an interview? And I said, how many people are on the list? I wanted to know how short of a list is it? And what does an operations manager do? Because I really didn't know much about that. And they said, well, you're just kind of the front of house guy. And I said, sure, I can do that. So I went down for the interview, and another one of these trick questions, it was about, how to clean an amphitheater. Did I know how to clean an amphitheater? And I said, well, I know what dirty looks like, and I know what clean looks like. So if we can get dirty clean, we're there. We're there. And John Martin, who's another gentleman who was responsible for a big part of my music career, hired me. And I said, sure, I can do all that. And I learned about the operations manager being from the highway patrol, traffic plans, parking plans, box office operations, ticketing. I just said that part. Security, medical, merchandising, scheduling the side stages for entertainment in the plazas, landscaping, which I never had don't have any landscaping experience, but I got the job, and I learned on the way. I learned a lot from so many people, and I think that's what is part of the success, is being able to learn from so many others.
Yeah. Now you have several charity clients down here, and I think this sounds really wonderful. Feeding San Diego. Yeah. You want a children's hospital, Big Brothers Big Sisters San Diego. Yeah. That must have been pretty rewarding for you to do.
It still is, yeah. They've been my clients for 10 plus years. I've been doing their live events, at the Hyatt in La Jolla. We convert, buildings into parties for Feeding San Diego, and FCC, Foundation for the Children of the Californians, the Tijuana Children's Hospital. We've done concerts for the kids up at Rancho Santa Fe. And we've done, at the Santa Luz Golf Course, we've done Kenny Loggins and the Doobie Brothers, and built stages on the driving range there. And it's really satisfying, and now, the trouble with COVID is that, what do we do now, right? What do we do? Some of these organizations don't know what to do exactly, and some, where it's come to my attention is that I now have to become a virtual producer and a cheerleader and say, listen, we can do this, right? We don't have to just not do something, but a lot of them don't know what to do. And with board of directors, you have to convince people. And that's part of what my job is now, is to, without coercing them, is to convince them by showing other examples of other charities who have done the work and are being successful at it. And the ability to raise money now, it's really interesting if you think about it. When you go online virtually, there's no capacity issues, right? But if we do something at the Hyatt, we can do 500 people in the ballroom, and that's it. 500 people get to see our show. But by doing something virtually, and opening it up and putting it out on Facebook Live or their YouTube channel, and becoming nationwide, the ability for viewers to really watch this and donate money has been, without the overhead of having to put in a full ballroom of lighting and sound and stage hands and labor, which, that's cutting some people out, of work, but it is, I can't control that, so how do we spin our situation now into doing this virtually? And there's, a lot of companies that are doing it. A lot of production companies have, taken the lead and done it, and some are sitting on the sidelines kind of waiting for it to happen. And some of the ones that came out first, made some what I, was looking at. I thought, well, I'm not going to do that. Let me do something different. And it took me about 2 months into this summer here, from May until about the middle of, beginning of July, before I finally said, this is something that I can do, and let's get on it, so.
Yeah, it is quite a challenge right now. I'm with a new group here in San Diego called the Theater Alliance that I'm helping to start. It's a countywide professional association of all the theaters in town. And our biggest problem is content. How do you provide content right now? So that's something that everybody's talking about. And it's the way you handle that challenge is, it's different from group to group.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's not all, nobody wants to do Facebook, not Facebook, wants to do Zoom theater.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's so many other, ways that we can do this. And, some people are doing the drive-in thing, and that's kind of odd. I don't really get listening to a band through an FM radio. What if you have a bad stereo in your car? It doesn't seem. So, but everybody's trying, that's the thing, is that we're all trying really desperately to save this industry in some way,
right.
To put the stagehands back to work. Right. That so many that worked with me on my projects over the years that I now see, like, the paycheck to paycheck gig workers, it just hurts my soul to see them not have, a lot to do because there's nothing going on. So it's just, the catering folks are kind of, some of the catering folks have spun their business to providing, meals for, if you're going to do a gala, they send the meals to your homes of your guests that are going to come, your invitees. And, so they're able to spin that a little bit. But the gig workers on the ground, the stagehands, bus drivers, truck drivers, production managers that oversee the whole thing, we're all just kind of, sitting here. And hoping for the best. And I have to be an optimist. I don't know that it's going to be, maybe summer of next year that maybe we'll see some touring happening again. We'll just have to see how it goes. We'll have to see.
I know. We're just about to stream something. I'm playing Teddy Roosevelt in 3 weeks. Thus the mustache.
And are you doing live, or are you recording it?
No, we're recording it, so we'll be streaming it. But
it's safer.
Right there. It's the same thing. How do you get any kind of content out to the people? And we had to make a decision if we were going to be in the theater, which we're not allowed yet.
Yeah.
We're not allowed yet. So we are going to film it and put it out. Every single thing you do is an experiment right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But you got to look at this opportunity as to embrace the mess, to try to find the creativity in all of this nonsense, because what else do we have to do? I mean, we're going to just go nuts unless we can express ourselves and try to figure out how to make some sense of all this stuff that just doesn't make sense right now.
Right.
And at San Diego State, we're taking chances too. We're doing 3 productions, all virtual. And the first one, Two Lakes, Two Rivers, directed by Danny Bedeau, is fully live. Like that's, we're going to go live on this one. Something Professor Bedeau really felt strongly about. And, so we have stage managers that needed to convert to, yes, get kids to rehearsal, get them into the room when they're supposed to, but now you're going to have to do a lighting check when you do a prop check through Zoom. You're going to make sure that the actors have their prop. You got to show them to you. Here's my glass. Here's my this. So it's a whole new way, and they're learning a lot. Much Ado About Nothing, produced by Professor Reinholz, is going to be a combination of live and pre-recorded, where we were going to do some live scenes, and then we're going to cut to some designer research. We're going to talk to the designers about how they came about some of their research. And then we're going to do Chess, the musical, in a really sort of interesting way. And, there's a lot of questions that we still have to answer, but we're going to do it, and film it inside the Don Powell Theater, a limited cast. We're going to paint the stage with chess boxes that are 10 feet by 10 feet. So that gives us automatic social distance. We're going to light those, in that way, and then we're going to film it. And then bring in the orchestra and bring in the choir. So it's a great challenge, and I love going to these, these concept meetings and trying to figure out how we're going to do these kind of things. So.
Right, that's great. I hope that turns out well. Now, down here too, you have something, I love that theater is always the intersection between people and machinery and costumes and all the rest. What have been some of the great funny moments that you remember in the history of being a stage manager?
Oh my God, funny moments. I mean, they're funny now, but at the time they weren't. One example would be at the Old Globe Theater. My mentor Douglas was stage managing. We were As You Like It, and I was backstage and doing our pre-show checklist. We did all that, and everything was put away. We were ready for it, and the audience came in. And Douglas got me on the headset, and he said, "Jerome," and he always called me Jerome. That's my real name. And I said, "Yes." He goes, "Take a note for me." And I said, "Okay, what do you need?" He goes, "Blah, blah, 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 blah." And I looked around for my yellow pad to take my note, and I couldn't find it. So I wrote it on the back of a flat. And then he gave me another note, and he gave me another note. And I thought, what is going on here? And he says, "Do you have all those notes, Jerome?" I said, "Yes." He goes, "Tell me how you took all those notes when your yellow pad is in the forest of Arden in the middle of the tree." So during my pre-show checklist on stage, I had left the yellow pad there, walked away, the tree automated off stage. And when it came on in front of everybody, there was there was Orlando and Rosalind and this big yellow pad, So, I mean, yeah, that's funny at the moment. At the moment, not so funny. I thought I would lose my job.
I know.
There's all sorts of stories like that.
You have another one down here.
Which one was that?
About a pop star?
About a what? A pop star?
Pop star?
Oh, yeah. That was the time that I was told, "You'll never work in this town again." It was one of the only times that I was told that. I was working for Bill Silva. Bill asked if I would come down and work, help us set up chairs for the Rolling Stones in the mid-90s. And I went down and I set the chairs up. Middle of the afternoon, I was called to the office by their production manager, very famous guy, and said, "You're in charge of the house lights." And I said, "Great, I'm in charge of the house lights." Now, I knew nothing. I was so young and green. I didn't do any of the things that I do now, which is go find out where the house light switch is. Right? I mean, you do that now. How are you going to communicate between people? I didn't do any of that. I just was like, "Yeah, I got the house lights." So it came time to do the house light cue, and they said, get in the truck with the guy. And I'm like, "Get in the truck with the guy? Which guy?" It was the electrician for the stadium. It was actually at Jack Murphy Stadium, Qualcomm. So we got in, and I took my radio with me, and we drove all the way around to the other side, went under the tunnel, and we were suddenly in a massive amount of concrete. Radios didn't work so well. So there was a lot of static. And at the time, I'm so used to the word go, as a stage manager, go, so you go. And I thought that he had said go, but it was, he said no. Like I was saying, "Was that a go?" And he said no. And I went, thinking that his no was a go. And I turned on the house lights in the middle of Mick Jagger singing Jumpin' Jack Flash. It was the encore. Yeah. So then I heard, later that he was very upset, Mr. Jagger, and so was the production manager, and both were looking for me evidently after the show. But what happened, the scary part of it was that it got through to us through the electrician's radio that to turn them off, that I made a mistake. So we did. We turned them off again. Now those metal halide lights need 15 minutes to cool down. So the problem was that was the end of the show. And then they said, turn the house lights on, and they wouldn't go on. So now I've got 65, 70,000 people exiting in the dark. So as I walked back to the backstage compound, two of my colleagues, who shall remain nameless, they might be watching, but they remember, came to me and said, "You should just give us your radio and probably go home and not go back there. It's probably not the safest thing for you to do." And I said, "Really?" And they went, "No, really, really, really." So I did. I gave them my radio and I left, and I thought, this is, ridiculous. But that guy, in the afternoon said, "If you screw this up, you'll never work in this town again." Like it was a threat, right? And I screwed it up. So I thought, oh my God. And I thought that I had disappointed so many people, for the next couple of weeks. I was so, like, I let Bill down, and I let Rick Stewart, all of my friends, by making that mistake. And it took me some time before I mentioned earlier the Bill was instrumental. 2 years later, asked me to be his operations manager at the Summer Pops venue at Hospitality Point during the Republican National Convention when we were sharing with the symphony. So his faith in me was restored, and I thought that was one of the greatest things. And I came back, right? I came back, and now I teach my students about perseverance. Don't let anybody tell you that you'll never work in this town again. Be resilient, make mistakes, own it, deal with it, and then move forward. Move forward with it. You can't change it. You can't change it. So.
Right. I've learned from those kind of things. Being on stage, there's
Oh,
nothing
right.
more important than having a sense of humor. Because one time when you're in a show, especially a big show, and the scenery is acting up, you can't do anything about it. Like when you're in Les Miserables in New York and the barricades just leave.
What do you do?
Suddenly there's no problem. Oh,
right.
We can go right through. Those things you just have to be ready for and have a sense of humor about it.
Adaptable and flexible and a sense of humor.
Yeah, you talk about disruptions help you be creative.
Yeah.
And appreciate the unexpected advantage of coping with a little mess. So talk about that.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what I meant about, as far as like trying to, you have this mess that's presented before you. So how are we going to spin it in order that we can make it be successful? And I think that's what I was talking about as far as when COVID hit. What are we doing to embrace the mess and try to make something of it? So
right.
It's always been kind of my philosophy. We've got a situation, let's make the best of it, and then let's move forward. And you'd be surprised of having that attitude, how it's helpful. It's helpful being able to stay calm, try to solve the problem, try to move forward, keep your team empowered, keep them happy, motivated during difficult times. So you have to kind of rise above the situation and the difficulty and try to put on this, this happy face, for lack of a better term. But it's hard sometimes.
Right. You have to be the calm father figure for a very large number of people.
And you never know who's watching. That was one of the things. You're always auditioning when you're a freelancer. So when you're out in public and you have a situation happen, you just never know who's watching.
Right.
A great example of how I got my Super Bowl gig, right, I'll make it a short story. I was working for the All-Star Game folks who were the same producers, and I was getting screamed at by Gwen Stefani's manager backstage because of a situation with the bomb dogs coming at the same time of her sound check that they scheduled without telling me. And anyway, it caused a problem, and this woman was just yelling and yelling and yelling and yelling, like in your face, yelling. And I said, we'll all be a little better off if we could just take a deep breath, calm down, and let's get to solving the problem, and let's get a show. Let's do a show. Stop yelling. And the person who was standing around the corner, because this was outside, was the producer of the All-Star Game who does the Super Bowl, called me 2 months later and said, I saw what happened, and we like calm people on our team. What are you doing in October? And I said, what do you want me to be doing? And he said, we want you to come on a site visit to Houston, be on part of our Super Bowl team. And that changed my life, right? So you never know. You just never know who's watching. So you just always do the right thing, be kind to people, and try not to fight with people, That's my
right. This time has really kind of taught us that kindness is really essential, because to understand how everyone's doing in a very difficult time,
empathy.
If you don't, where are you,
Yeah, and nobody wants to work with assholes. I mean, excuse my language, but being kind, people want to work with people who are kind and who get along with people. They don't want to work with people who are no, right? We're good production managers follow the the yes and philosophy of improv. Yes and.
Right.
We try to do that.
You have to, right? So what are what's the next things that you'll be doing for the book? Are you going to be doing any kind of a book tour? Are you going to,
gosh,
when things come back?
We don't really do tours. We we go and speak at schools if professors will have us. We kind of are marketing it ourselves and trying to push it out. So this is the first real situation where it's been like a bookstore, which I'm excited about. But we'll go out and we'll tell our friends, and we'll use Facebook, and our colleagues and friends might pick up the second edition, or they might say the first is enough. You never know. Hey, Julie.
Hi, Julie.
Welcome back.
Yeah, that was a great conversation. I want to tell everybody that's watching us, we have two San Diego iconic gentlemen here. I don't think that everybody realizes just, I mean, the people that you two have met and touched, and it's amazing. So this is what a great conversation.
Good. Good.
We have a couple of comments, not a lot of questions, but a couple of comments here. Patricia says, Jay's integrity has always shone through and is evidenced in all of his work and professional relationships.
Who said that?
Patricia. I think she might be related to you.
Patricia.
She has a Sheehan as a last name.
Oh my gosh, yeah, of course, yes. That's my darling stepmother. And she's always been, since I was, 6 years old, has been a stalwart, supporter of my
So
work.
that touchstone person.
She's watched me grow up. Yeah.
Love it. And then Diane Shelton has is agreeing and saying, no question, just love Jay, a beautiful human being and one of my favorite people in the world. Thanks, Jay, for being you.
Oh, thank you so much. So, thank you, Diane.
And then I got a long one here from Beth. Beth Penny is absolutely fascinating and entertaining. Thank you. Your staff and students are so fortunate to have you to embrace the mess, quote unquote. Any production changes that you foresee that will be permanently changed due to the pandemic, or ideas to get theater, back soon? Are there any? So the question there is, do you foresee that any of the production changes that will be permanently changed due to the pandemic?
Personally, I think it depends on what happens with the vaccination. I think it depends on what happens with, immunity. I think if it comes back now, if we find that you can get it twice, so much is unknown. But we are challenged with the social distance rules right now, right? And the biggest challenge for us is if you do go back and we're able to do social distance theater, and maybe incorporating masks or face coverings into the costume design or something, or doing devised work, doing off-site work, outside work is going to become a really maybe new thing that we're going to look into, because being outside changes the dynamic of that. And also, if you only have, say we have 500 seats in our theater, if you can only sell a quarter of them, now your capacity is 125. So then how do you then price your tickets in order to sustain budgets if you're not going to make any cuts to your production values, which affects our design program, it affects our MFA program in scenery, all the areas.
But then it also kind of leads into where then only certain people are able to economically be able to even go to the theater. So it goes to all these other things too.
Or you make your shows free. I mean, that's the other thing, and then somehow the schools absorb the cost of, if you're going to make $500 for the night out of 125 seats or whatever it is, maybe the colleges, maybe there's some grant programs that can just say, here's $500, let people come in for free, And the thing again with virtual theater is that there are no capacity issues, right? That's what I was saying, is we don't have any capacity issues, so thousands of people could potentially see your work. So I think there's there's give and take. Being safe is the number one thing if we're going to come back. And we have flex classes at San Diego State where we're going to have some face-to-face classes, and they have to be, tested and make sure that the, cleanup and all of the COVID things that you have to do, face masking and social distancing, and only so many people in a classroom at once. So there's all these new challenges to teaching that, before we even get to the subject matter,
right,
we've got to get to keeping everybody safe, and that's our responsibility too as faculty members.
Right. And right now, the theaters in San Diego, there's no one who can do any work. There's no one, because a quarter capacity doesn't make it possible for anyone. And you look at Broadway is not talking about doing anything until January.
Right.
So a lot of people are literally thinking nothing until the first of the year, because they won't allow us. And then you get like 2 groups, you can't have a group larger than 10. There's so much to think about in producing a show right now. Schools may have it better because they can do a lot more things, like they have a lot more room, they have a lot more options. A theater, there's very few options right now.
Yeah.
Well, and it's really funny, you guys, because it's the same thing that goes with book tours and authors. I mean, we are facing the exact same thing that you guys are talking about. We usually have the store filled with hundreds of people, and we can fit 200 people in the store. We're limited to 10. who's going to come? Is it worth doing it?
Yeah, yeah. So that's
You know, it's all the same. This thing is just trickled into the same thing.
It's all of us. There's not one person, I don't think, one industry that has not been affected, honestly, by this. You know, so it's about how to flexible and adaptable and figuring out what can we do to stay afloat.
And hence this conversation.
Yeah.
Hence doing, you know, and that was the one thing that Warwick's had to do initially. We had to pivot and say, how are we going to stay in front of San Diegans who come to us to bring them authors and entertainment and content? And, you know, I had to learn Zoom and broadcasting. You know, it's like we all have to adapt in these ways. Just like Jay, you talking about your career, Phil, I'm sure you've had the same thing. It's like you just have to be tenacious and figure it out.
And create those opportunities for yourself somehow. You know, don't wait for them to come to you. Somehow figure out, what can I do? Be an entrepreneur. You have to be, you know, as part of being a freelancer.
Yeah.
But that's why I think, you know, moving outdoors, I think, is going to be one of the things that we're going to try to do more of, you know, if we can do that, make that happen.
Well, we're kind of coming to the end of our time here.
Oh my gosh, that was the fastest time ever.
I know, it was such a great conversation. So Phil, I'm going to give you each last words to share with the audience that you just want to say something to San Diego and theater. And so Phil, I'm going to give it to you first.
Well, thank you for having me. I've had a wonderful time, and I'm glad to know there's something like this out there. Our theater keeps plugging away, so we have a couple of offerings in October and November. Roosevelt Charged the Bear, and another play about a woman escaping Iran during the revolution, No Way Back.
And then if people want to find you and see what Phil's up to, or do you do any social media? Do you have a website?
Oh, yeah.
How would people
we have
find
a
you?
TheRoustabouts.org. TheRoustabouts.org.
Okay. And do you like to do Twitter or any of that stuff that you want to share your thoughts with people?
Do it all. We're on Facebook and we're on Twitter, you know. And
so they can find you through that website?
Yes, TheRoustabouts.org. Thanks.
Excellent. Okay, Jay, any last words?
Last words. Take a deep breath, everybody. Breathe. You know, wake up every day with some optimism, some passion. Don't lose your passion in your creativity, and just carry on. And everything is gonna, you know, it's gonna work out here for us. Do the best you can. Hang in there. And take a deep breath.
Yep. And if people want to find you, what's the best way for people to see what you're up to?
Facebook, Jay Sheehan, if you like. Also, if you Google SDSU Theater, TTF, Theater, Television, Film, I'll pop up. My email address is public there on the web, and anybody that wants to follow up with any questions, just hit me up there at my SDSU address. I'll be happy to answer and help somehow. And come in. If you're watching and you need somebody to come and talk to your class, I'm happy to do that.
It looks like we have some more comments here before I let you go. Somebody said they joined a little late. Thanks for sharing your experiences. She already has the production manager's toolkit and loved reading through it. So that's Brooke Friedman. And then
thank you, Brooke.
Geronimo says thank you. Kathleen says such a great conversation. So lots of good love out there.
Another SDSU alum. I remember all my students, really. You can't forget them.
SDSU alum here. My husband actually played football for San Diego State back in the day. So Aztecs, here we are. So this was a great conversation. Jay, thank you for reaching out. I think this was really a fun thing to do. And Phil, can't wait to see you and Marnie and all the things that you've got going on too. So
thank you.
Thank you. And I'm going to wave everybody off. Yeah, shaking hands, whichever way it goes. And I'll take us off of Facebook Live. All right. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Bye-bye.
And I'll stop.